The air hit Adam like a physical blow, not just the cold, but the smell. It was a potent chemical blend of disinfectant, ozone, and the underlying metallic tang of decomposition thick enough to cling to his throat. He was deep in the bowels of the St. Jude's County Medical Facility, an immense brick fortress built in the 1940s and scheduled for demolition next year. His assignment was the morgue. Adam's client was a severe, sweating man named Mr. Finch, the facility manager, who wrung his hands constantly. "The main refrigeration unit, Adam, it's failing. We have a crisis, an absolute crisis. The surge capacity is full and we cannot afford to lose the cooling at this volume." Mr. Finch's eyes darted nervously toward the heavy insulated door marked mortuary, keep closed. Adam studied the blueprints. The system was massive, obsolete, and running far beyond its capacity. The compressors are working overtime. You're trying to cool too much space with too few active units. How many? 31, Finch whispered, his face pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lights of the hall. 31 bodies awaiting transfer. We need the system fixed by dawn, Adam. No excuses. You have to go inside to access the secondary coolant lines. Finch pressed a worn plastic keycard into Adam's hand. "We're running late, Adam. You'll be working through the night. I'll be upstairs, but the main doors lock at 10. The isolation was immediate. Adam stepped through the mortuary door and into the receiving hall. The cold was absolute, deep and heavy, instantly numbing his face. He passed 2 empty stainless steel autopsy tables, gleaming instruments of finality under weak, buzzing overhead lights. He moved into the main cold chamber. This was where the work began. The room was lined entirely with 3 tiers of polished metal drawers stretching into the dim distance. Each drawer held a life ended, a fact made profoundly real by the quiet, intense chill. The oppressive silence was broken only by the shuddering, failing groan of the main refrigeration unit mounted high on the wall. Adam set down his toolkit beside the main coolant manifold. He opened the panel, revealing the complex frost-covered lines. The work required precise welding near the core compressor, hours of focused effort. He stripped the damaged wiring sheath, the sharp noise echoing unnaturally in the confined space. He felt the intense, clinical dread of the room settle over him, a pressure compounded by the frigid air and the silent occupants of the drawers. It was during this initial focus, the moment he lifted his mask to wipe the sweat from his brow, that he saw it. In the second row of drawers to his left, just past the coolant pipes he was focused on, one of the aluminum surfaces was reflecting the weak light. Beneath the white sheet covering the body in that drawer, Adam registered a brief, barely perceptible movement, a slight shift of the head, a settling of the weight. Adam stared, his breath frosting instantly. The fatigue of the long drive and the overwhelming cold were hitting him hard. It was the unit shuddering, he told himself, the failing compressor causing vibrations. He dismissed the movement as an optical illusion and returned to the complex, silent work of the faulty coolant lines. He knew one thing: he wouldn't be leaving this room until morning. The work stretched into the deep, suffocating cold of the night. The hospital's evening bustle had dissolved into silence, the long hallways now echoing with only the distant, tired hum of ventilation. Adam finished the intricate welding on the first line by 10:30 p.m. He emerged from the cold chamber, pulling down his mask, his breath clouding heavily in the warmer, yet still frigid hall. The area was now reduced to a skeleton crew of 3. Adam walked past the reception desk. Jessica, a young woman with dark, anxious eyes, was huddled over a space heater, clutching a half-empty coffee mug. Nearby, Marvin, the night security guard, was slumped in a padded chair, a cheap paperback resting untouched on his lap, his attention glued to a small, muffled, portable TV. "Almost there, Adam?" Jessica asked, her voice thin and high-pitched. She glanced nervously down the dark, insulated hallway leading back to the mortuary.
"Halfway," Adam grunted, rubbing the overwhelming cold from his gloved hands. "The primary line is patched. I need to get back in to check the pressure on the secondary line. That's where the real problem is." Marvin, without looking away from the screen, mumbled, "Just try not to wake anyone up back there, man. I hate this wing." Jessica shivered violently, pulling her cardigan tighter. "I hate it too. The manager, Finch, he just dumped all the overflow down here. They're usually empty by now. I don't care about the pay, Marvin. I swear I will not come back if I have to sit by this door again." Her fear was palpable, a live current in the air. As Adam reached for the cold chamber keycard, the lights in the immediate hallway began to flicker. It wasn't a smooth, typical power dip. The fluorescent tubes shuddered violently, clicking erratically, before snapping back on, only to immediately plunge into an unnatural, pulsating rhythm of light and shadow. The change was abrupt, alarming, and seemed localized entirely to the mortuary wing. "Oh, no, 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 no," Jessica whimpered, covering her mouth. "What was that? We never get flickers down here, never!" Marvin finally looked up from his TV, his face pale. "Adam, is that you messing with the power grid? Cut it out!" "That's not me," Adam said, his professional composure cracking slightly. The unnaturally intense way the lights were cycling matched the technical anomaly Mr. Finch had reported. "That's the failure Finch told me about. It's a massive power draw on the secondary network, the one that controls the coolant flow to the chamber." He knew what this meant. The main refrigeration unit was actively fighting a problem he hadn't yet identified, and it was losing. "I have to go back in," Adam stated, pulling his thermal mask up. "If that coolant line bursts, you won't have a crisis, you'll have a biohazard." Jessica grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Please, just be fast. That place, I swear I hear things when the main unit kicks on. Just please, be fast." Adam nodded quickly, slipping the keycard into the reader. The heavy door hissed open, allowing a wave of frigid air and the metallic smell to flood the hallway. He stepped back inside, leaving the nervous receptionist and the lazy security guard to the pulsating darkness. He needed to find the line and stop whatever was drawing the impossible power. The cold chamber swallowed Adam whole. He moved quickly past the silent metal-lined drawers, aiming for the rear wall where the secondary refrigerant lines fed into the main cooling array. The pulsating rhythm of the hallway's lights was now a faint, disorienting strobe visible through the tiny insulated window of the chamber door. Inside, the only illumination was his LED headlamp, casting stark, exaggerated shadows over the stainless steel. He located the secondary coolant manifold. It was iced over, the pipes shuddering under impossible pressure. As he reached for his diagnostic scanner, a sudden loud metallic clang echoed from the receiving hall outside. It sounded like a heavy gurney being violently overturned. Adam froze, listening. Marvin and Jessica, he thought. They must have dropped something. But the silence that followed was immediate and unnatural. There was no shout, no apology, just the sudden, profound vacuum of sound that signals something is profoundly wrong. Before Adam could move, the heavy insulated steel door of the cold chamber slammed shut with a deafening thwum. The impact shook the very floor. In the split second before the external light was completely cut off, Adam saw the small red indicator light beside the door's manual override switch snap from unlocked to locked.
Panic, cold and sharp, seized him. "Marvin!" Adam shouted, pounding against the thick door. "Open the door! This isn't funny!" Only the failing, rattling groan of the refrigeration unit answered him. He fumbled with his tools, frantically trying to find something to jimmy the override mechanism, which was designed to resist internal tampering. As the claustrophobia tightened its grip, the atmosphere of the room shifted again. The ambient temperature, already near freezing, dropped violently. Adam's breath instantly turned to thick plumes of fog. The cold was no longer just a physical sensation. It was an intrusive, consuming presence. Then, the whispers began. They were faint, desperately close, and undeniably human. They didn't come from the walls or the ceiling. They came from the metallic drawers surrounding him. It was a chorus of low, agonizing pleas, a multitude of dry, cracked voices, speaking in unison, yet indistinctly. They sounded like someone trying to speak through a thick layer of dust. "Cold. Help me. You. Alone." Adam backed away from the coolant manifold, shining his light frantically over the rows of steel. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him, pressing in from every direction. He could feel the desperate, clammy cold of the voices reaching out. He realized, with sickening finality, that the 31 occupants of the drawers were active, and they were fully aware he was trapped in their final space. The terrifying power draw was not a technical glitch. It was them. Outside the thick steel door, the metallic clang of desperate effort began. Marvin and Jessica were frantically working the external lock. Adam could hear Marvin shouting in muffled panic. "It won't turn! It's jammed! Jessica, the keycard isn't working!" Inside, Adam ignored the external noise, focusing his entire being on the cold chamber's internal manual override mechanism.
He used his rotary tool. The high-pitched whine of the blade briefly dominated the whispers, attempting to cut through the hardened steel bolt locking the mechanism. Sparks showered the cold air, reflecting off the polished drawers. But the chamber itself was fighting back. The whispers intensified, moving from desperate pleas to a low, collective hissing. The temperature dropped another several degrees, biting deep into Adam's exposed skin. The air felt thick, heavy, and wet. It was the pure, concentrated essence of clinical dread. Then, slowly, systematically, the drawers began to slide open. It started with the one closest to Adam, in the second row, the one where he had seen the barely perceptible movement hours ago. The metallic runner shrieked against the silence as the drawer pulled out 6 inches, revealing the white sheet covering the occupant. Then the one beside it. Then the one across the aisle. Row by row, the occupants of the cold chamber were being presented. The sound of dozens of metal runners shrieking in the freezing air was utterly deafening, a chorus of mechanical terror. Adam pulled back his rotary tool, abandoning the lock for a moment. He backed toward the central aisle, surrounded now by the slowly emerging rows of the dead. He could see the shapes beneath the sheets, each one a terrifying, still silhouette. Outside, the frantic activity stopped abruptly. Marvin's voice, now high-pitched and choked with pure fear, pounded against the door. "It's heavy, Jess! I can't breathe! The air, it feels like being underwater!" Marvin shrieked. Jessica's voice was hysterical. "Marvin, look out! Get away from the door!" Adam knew the entity was focusing its energy on the outside. The immense cold, the power draw, it was building an impenetrable wall between Adam and escape. Then, a sudden, concussive smash rocked the steel door. It wasn't the sound of a tool. It was the heavy, sickening impact of a body hitting metal. Marvin screamed, a short, sharp, wet sound of shock and pain that was immediately cut off by a heavy, defeated groan as his body slumped to the floor outside. The door rattled violently from the impact. Adam stared at the lock. Marvin was a large, capable security guard. The only force that could have done that was the invisible, malevolent energy that had been suffocating them. The entity had physically neutralized the guard. Jessica was left alone outside the door, her high-pitched, desperate sobs muffled by the heavy steel. Adam looked at the dozens of open drawers, the whispers now a triumphant, hungry roar. He was truly alone, trapped in a prison whose walls were lined with the dead. He had to stop the entity and survive the cold chamber before it finished its work. Outside the cold chamber, the silence was broken only by Jessica's ragged, choking sobs. She knew Marvin was down. The heavy thud, the gasp, and the final defeated slump against the steel door, the sounds were horrifyingly clear. She pressed her back against the far wall of the receiving hall, her face buried in her hands, her professional anxiety now incinerated by raw, primal fear. Then, through the haze of terror, Adam's voice reached her, muffled but insistent, vibrating through the thick insulation of the door. "Jessica, get up! He's just knocked out! Find the fire extinguisher!" The sound of his voice, a human presence fighting back, was the anchor she needed. She wiped her tears and looked around the dimly lit hallway. Her eyes landed on the red cylinder mounted on the wall near the autopsy tables. The fear was still there, but a fierce, desperate resolve to survive and possibly save Adam hardened her gaze. She grabbed the heavy fire extinguisher, its cold metal a comforting weight in her hands. She was ready to fight the darkness that had consumed her coworker. Inside the cold chamber, Adam shone his powerful LED beam over the terrifying tableau. Dozens of drawers were pulled open, their metal frames gleaming in the cold air. The sheets covering the bodies were still, yet the whispers, the sibilant hiss of the collective entity filled the space. The temperature continued its chilling descent, making his every movement an agony of frozen muscle. He ignored the open drawers and the terrifying shapes beneath the cloth. His focus was entirely on the mechanics of his prison. He needed to find the internal bypass for the lock, a protocol that usually only exists in emergency blueprint designs. Adam ran his gloved hand along the perimeter wall, searching for any seam, any panel that didn't match the standard installation. He knew the external security company would never place the manual override outside. It would be a liability. It had to be concealed.
His fingers found it near the cold chamber's primary air vent, a hairline seam disguised by a thin layer of metallic paint. Using his utility knife, Adam carefully scored the paint away, revealing a small recessed access panel, about the size of a paperback book. The panel was secured by 3 tiny, specialized screws.
"Jessica!" Adam shouted, his voice hoarse. "I found an internal bypass panel! I need time! You have to stop whatever is outside!" Outside, Jessica heard his strained voice. She looked down the hallway where Marvin lay motionless against the steel door, and then back at the dark corridors of the morgue. She swung the fire extinguisher up onto her shoulder, its metallic weight bracing her resolve. She was ready for the fight. She just didn't know what she was fighting. Adam had the tools to fix the technical problem, but she was the only one left to fight the physical one. She took a deep, shuddering breath and stood guard over the receiving hall, waiting for the inevitable. Adam worked with desperate surgical focus. His fingers, numb with cold, fumbled with the tiny screws on the internal access panel. He was keenly aware of the slow, triumphant hiss from the open drawers behind him, the sound confirming the entity was waiting for him to fail. He finally removed the last screw and pulled the small panel free, revealing the complex wiring of the manual solenoid lock. He bypassed the circuitry by hand, crossing 2 specific leads. The small red indicator light on the main chamber door immediately snapped back to unlocked. With a powerful shove fueled by pure adrenaline, Adam threw the heavy door inward and staggered out into the receiving hall. "Jessica!" he gasped, spinning around. Jessica, fire extinguisher raised, was standing rigid near Marvin's body. She dropped the extinguisher and ran to Adam, collapsing against him, both of them shaking violently from fear and cold. The reunion was brief, intense, and utterly fractured by the terror they had endured. "We have to go, now," Adam rasped, grabbing the back of her shirt. "It's feeding, we have to—" His sentence was cut short by a final, decisive act of the entity. The few remaining fluorescent lights in the receiving hall shuddered, clicked violently, and snapped into total darkness. The entire morgue wing was plunged into absolute suffocating blackness. The silence was instantaneous, broken only by their ragged breathing. Adam ripped the headlamp from his forehead. The powerful beam cut a desperate moving circle through the void. Then they heard it. The sound of something heavy moving down the hallway towards them. It was a slow, deliberate schluck, 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 the sickening sound of something immense and wet being dragged across the linoleum floor. It was coming from the direction of the autopsy tables. Adam spun, shining the light at the source. There was nothing visible, yet the sound continued its slow, agonizing approach. The temperature around them plunged instantly, turning their breath into blinding clouds of crystalline fog. "Get behind the desk, now!" Adam shouted, shoving Jessica backward. But it was too late. The air between them suddenly coalesced. The Rue, the spirit, materialized not as a ghost, but as a towering, roiling column of swirling cold air and shadows. It was formless, yet possessed immense, palpable weight, radiating an oppressive cold that felt like physical pain.
The swirling mass ignored Adam entirely. It lunged straight toward Jessica, a silent, invisible tide of freezing air. Jessica let out a strangled cry as she was forcibly slammed backward against the concrete wall. The breath was instantly knocked from her lungs, and she was pinned there, rigid, unable to move, trapped beneath the invisible physical weight of the towering shadow. Adam screamed her name, swinging his hammer, but the weapon passed uselessly through the swirling, freezing void. The entity had claimed its final barrier. The crushing cold was a tangible weapon. Jessica was pinned against the wall, eyes wide with terror, the swirling shadow pressing the air from her lungs. Adam knew brute force was useless against a form composed of pure energy and dread. The entity was powerful because the failing refrigeration unit was feeding it. "The cooling! It's drawing power from the coolant lines!" Adam roared, his voice cracking against the ringing cold. He fought the overwhelming urge to run. "Jessica, listen to me! The emergency power switch, near the receiving door!" Jessica, unable to speak, managed a small, frantic nod. The invisible force holding her was slowly squeezing the life out of her. Adam spun, his powerful headlamp cutting through the freezing fog. He had to overload the physical source of the entity's power. He sprinted back toward the cold chamber door he had just escaped, knowing it was the quickest route to the main refrigerant manifold. "It's a red handle, near Marvin. You have to flip it. Cut the power to the compressors," Adam yelled, hoping his words were penetrating the psychological terror. "I patched that switch this morning. It should hold a surge." Jessica, fueled by Adam's desperate instruction, fought back. She pushed against the invisible pressure, her body shaking violently. With a final agonizing heave, she ripped herself free from the shadowy vortex, staggering away from the wall. The entity shrieked, a soundless psychic blast of freezing malice, and turned its crushing weight toward Adam. Adam reached the open cold chamber door. He grabbed his remaining tools, a heavy adjustable wrench and a coil of thick copper wire. The entity was upon him, the intense cold hitting his back like a physical hammer, threatening to paralyze his muscles. Ignoring the pain, Adam plunged the copper wire directly into the exposed, damaged port of the main refrigerant line. He used the heavy wrench to quickly twist the pressure valve further open. This was reckless, technical suicide. He wasn't fixing the leak. He was deliberately introducing a massive surge of pressurized, unstable coolant into the system, hoping the resulting feedback would short out the entity's energy supply. A terrible shrieking "wah" erupted from the main refrigeration unit on the far wall. The compressor, already running beyond capacity, was fighting the sudden overload. Outside the chamber, Jessica was moving. Stumbling, falling, and crawling over Marvin's prone body, she moved toward the red emergency switch near the receiving door. The unseen force was fighting her, pushing the heavy gurneys and metal wastebins into her path. She crawled beneath an overturned steel table, her hands searching frantically for the solid handle of the switch. Adam, now fully enveloped in the crushing cold of the vortex, felt his vision dim. The entity was trying to freeze the energy in his blood. He saw Jessica's distant form reach the wall. "Now, Jessica! Now!" Jessica's trembling fingers found the cold, solid handle of the emergency switch. She didn't hesitate. With a final agonizing grunt of effort, she yanked the heavy red handle down. The hospital instantly responded with a violent, concussive bang. The shriek of the overloaded compressor unit in the cold chamber died instantly, replaced by the profound, deafening silence of machinery that has been permanently and brutally shut off. The overwhelming cold radiating from the shadow vortex vanished, dissipating into the ambient chill of the morgue. Adam, released from the crushing pressure, collapsed onto the concrete floor, hacking against the pain in his lungs. The towering shadow was gone, dissolved instantly by the loss of its energy source. "Jessica!" Adam rasped, shining his light into the hall. Jessica stumbled back toward him, falling onto her knees beside Marvin. She was alive, but utterly spent. Adam hauled himself to his feet, ignoring the severe pain in his shoulder. They didn't look at Marvin. They knew they had to prioritize escape. Adam grabbed Jessica's arm, guiding her past the overturned gurneys and the silently damaged cold chamber door. They didn't stop to retrieve tools or coats. They ran, scrambling through the dark receiving hall and up the emergency stairs. They burst out of the staff exit and into the frigid night air. The city was silent. Adam drove them fast, pushing the truck far away from the imposing silence of the old medical facility. It wasn't until they were 30 miles away, parked on the shoulder of an empty highway, that he stopped shaking long enough to speak. "The cold, the power draw," Adam murmured, his voice hollow. "It wasn't random. Finch said they had 31 bodies, unclaimed. The paperwork, the final identification, the signatures, it wasn't complete. They were technically still in the system, trapped between life and death." Jessica covered her face with her hands, sobbing silently. "They were waiting. They were angry."
They were hungry, Adam corrected, his voice bleak. They were using the energy of the cooling system to manifest, to fight, to be released. They weren't ghosts of history. They were the unresolved liabilities of the hospital's current paperwork, stuck in the transition. They looked back toward the distant glow of the city lights, the world they had just escaped. They had left Marvin behind, unconscious and alone, and the 31 angry liabilities in the silent cold. Adam understood the final, chilling truth about his job. The deepest horrors are not found in haunted history, but in the present clinical negligence. The most unsettling cold is not the air temperature. It is the calculated indifference of the institutions that hide the unresolved. If you want to understand the protocols of the deep state and the secrets institutions bury under the guise of public service, you need to be ready for the truth. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the things hospitals leave unfinished are the things that come back to claim you.